Greetings. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Spotlight. Set, costumes, light, and sound are the most obvious design elements of a theater production. For more than a decade, many Pregones Puerto Rican traveling theater productions have been graced by the works of the two prominent theater designers and ensemble members we will feature tonight. Lucrecia Briceño is a Peruvian lighting designer based in New York City. Her work includes theater, opera, puppetry, and dance. The Public Theater, Metropolitan Museum of Art, La Mama, the Kennedy Center, and of course, Pregones PRTT are some of the venues whose productions and exhibits have been designed by Lucrecia. Her international portfolio is just as impressive. Peru, Scotland, Turkey, England, just to name a few. Nadal is a Puerto Rican-born costume designer also based in New York City with a long trajectory designing for a broad range of theater productions across the United States and abroad. Working with directors, choreographers, and other designers, he has shaped a formidable career with his work seen at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, Boundless Theater, Chicago Opera Theater, Arena Stage, Pregones PRTT, and many others. Join us as Lucrecia and Harry speak about their artistic journeys and share some samples of their work. Enjoy.
My name is Lucrecia Briceño, and I am a lighting designer. I am from Lima, Peru. I was born in Bogotá, Colombia, but my family, my childhood, my everything is from Lima, Peru.
I'm Harry Nadal, originally from San Juan, Puerto Rico. I am a costume and set designer for the theater. I started in the University of Puerto Rico, and then I transferred to New York to finish my studies. I went to NYU, Tisch School of the Arts. Slowly but surely, I evolved in my career.
I started lighting design when I was in undergrad. I was a performer. I was a student for acting, performer. And I started getting very interested in lighting while I was in my junior year in college. And I moved to New York City in 1998. And after a few failed trials, trying the acting life, I started to get a little more focus on the backstage. So I applied to NYU, got into NYU, and in 2004, I graduated with an MFA in lighting design.
If not the first, one of the first that for me was special was in Puerto Rico, actually, was the Seagull, Anton Chekhov's The Seagull with Teatro del 60 in 1990, I believe, 1991, 1990. I was still a student, and it was like the first piece that I felt that had significance in, starting a career. It was a great experience. I remember digging through old costume pieces that were at the University of Puerto Rico because they have a long history, a costume shop that dates decades and decades. So I designed it, but then collaborating with Gloria Saez, who had been my design teacher, who ran the workroom, we started digging vintage pieces to create the turn of the century Russia.
The first show I had to design the lights for, yes, it was in 1997. It was a show called The Cure of Troy, and was a show that I had to design the scenery and the lighting for it. And it was a show that traveled to Greece. So I did the show in amphitheaters in Athens and in Spetsis, a small island in Greece. My design process, it changes a lot. I encourage my other collaborators in engaging into larger conversations that doesn't only have to do with lighting or with the design aspects, but sort of what the play is about, goals, the aesthetic life around the ideas within the play. And then design sort of comes naturally, depending on the environment, depending on the performers. A lot of the times, really, a lot of my ideas change because I'm watching rehearsals and I see things that inspire me to go in different directions. So I am one of those designers that love watching actors rehearse. I love talking costumes and scenery and projections and sound with everybody that wants to talk about them. For me, I would love it to be a longer process than currently is.
I think a good designer in general, costume sets in the theater, first of all, you have to love it. You have to love the profession you have to know yourself as an artist. And that it's like a calling you have in life. And also perseverance. I know it sounds a bit cliche, but I think it's a very difficult field. To be a good designer, you have to have a broad knowledge of everything. So we never stop learning. The more information you have as an artist, it makes you a better designer. When I say information not only about theater, about art, architecture, literature, film, and the list goes on and on. I would say what guides me as a designer is the story. In general, because each project is different, the story informs me, inspires me. It's really the starting point of everything. So, of course, inspiration from everywhere. But I think the story, because we are visual storytellers. So once I read the story or I know what it is, that sparks the process.
When I started doing lighting, I came from a world or I was surrounded by a technology, incandescent technology. There's the development in the last 15 years, sort of have incorporated LED technology, and it really has changed the way that we use the tools, the way where we put the light in, how we decide, but the principles are still the same. But the technology of being able to, in one fixture, be able to have it red and change to blue or change to orange, and it's the same fixture, has really changed the industry. And it has been very positive. Now I could say old school lighting designers, we will always be sort of enamored with the incandescent, Now that they have stopped producing PARs. I don't know if for a lot of your audience, they will know what a PAR is, but it's those old school lighting that they used to have in concerts, in music concerts. And now they are not making them anymore. And it was an incredible, beautiful light that is just not efficient anymore. For a good lighting designer, technology comes in all forms: fluorescence, flashlights, you name it. Is really the tools that you have for that particular storytelling moment.
I always say that the most important process for a designer is the discovery process, the creative process. It's even more important than the final design because that's where everything comes together. So like when I have worked in different productions here, the worlds are very different in each one. So what I do is I read the script, I start on a journey, which is the research phase of the project, which is for me is the most important. I think I must have been an archaeologist in a previous life because I really love that. It's like I start from the get-go, even way before, the minute I read it. And then I start gathering pictures, images of the world we're trying to convey. Research from everywhere that I can find. And I gather a lot of material, and then I select what speaks to me in terms of color, texture, shape, and then I present it to the director. And then that selection is the one that really informs us of what the show is going to look like. Sometimes, and it has happened here in Pregones, the director gives you an idea that all of a sudden completes the picture or shifts a little bit. So it's a collaboration. Then from there, a lot of production meetings, then I move into the sketching phase. I start designing the world, which is the sketch. Characters with the costumes, the same thing. I start choosing colors for the characters. And then we finish the look, but it's taking it step by step. And then the final sketch is the result of that whole journey.
How do I choose a color palette? Again, I think it's more, it depends on the show. The show tells you an aesthetic, sort of it has a life on its own. Sometimes I spend a lot of time researching images. Sometimes I go to my library. I have a large library of images of artists that influence my work, or of people that I admire, people that I found fascinating, or sometimes just little newspaper articles. I get to do that, I guess, choosing a real palette on my third read of the show, fourth read. Also, it influences a lot on the scenery. And of course, a very, very detailed conversation with the costume designer. So that's sort of what orients and sort of, makes me decide which type of yellow this yellow should be. And that's what that conversation sort of elaborates what the final color will be.
Where do I gather materials? Or everywhere. I go to, even if it's a period piece that I'm designing, I go to stores. I go to junkyards where they sell stuff. I've gone to prop warehouses. I've gone to people's backyards. I've gone to people's houses. You really, you have connections and people. Anywhere I can find stuff, I go. So there's really not a list. You start by looking around from the places and then people tell you of other places, and then you dig more. And then you keep adding source places to your list.
I really do feel that the level of integrity in the work, also in the sense of community with front of house and just everybody involved in the Pregones family, makes people feel happy and makes people leave the theater feeling lifted.
It speaks to our current moment here in the world where people need to escape, and I love that this theater provides inspiration and a reminder of our beautiful culture. I feel that it is a place, a sanctuary for artists, Puerto Rican artists, to develop their craft, develop themselves as people, and it provides that for not only Puerto Ricans here in New York City and abroad, but also it provides that for other Latino artists and also artists from the LGBTQ+ community.
We are so proud to be recognized as one of the leading Latinx theater ensembles in the nation. And we're home to more than 20 artists ranging from choreographers, actors, designers, playwrights, who continue to share their stories and their talent on our stages, both in the Bronx and in Manhattan. The support of our donors not only helps to keep the legacy that Miriam Colon set forth here at Pregones Puerto Rican Traveling Theater, but also impacts artists, for instance, in Puerto Rico, where we have been able to institute grants, emergency grants, to artists that were affected by Hurricane Maria, and now most recently by artists who were also affected by the earthquakes in Puerto Rico. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being part of our family.
Pregones became and has been, since I started coming here to work, it has been my theatrical home. I love working here. I love the audiences here. I love, all the collaborators from high up there to, people that are working around, taking care of the space. I feel a really familial connection with everybody.
Ever since I moved here, I remember having actor friends from my generation, who used to act in productions of Pregones, so I used to come and see them. So it's one of the first Latino theaters that I attended when I moved to New York. And then I think it was 1994, Jorge Merced called me to design the costumes for Allen Tales, a show he was directing in Allentown. And that was my introduction to Pregones. Then after, I think 10 years later, with the opening of the new theater and the new piece, The Red Rose, Rosalba called me to design the costumes for that. And ever since, I've been working steadily with Pregones and as a designer. I think a significant moment in my career and in my life in New York as a designer was The Red Rose, because it was a company I knew and I loved, opening a new space. It was a beautiful new piece with Danny Rivera. All those, it made it very special. It was a very special moment for me. And I think it turned out a beautiful production. So The Red Rose for me always stands out.
My first show was Piojos, and I love that show because it was sort of my one first time working with a lot of collaborators, and I really liked that show. And working with Rosalba was really amazing because she freed me from like the conventional, and I love that about her writing and the themes that she works with.
I really loved Aloha Boricua, which was set in Hawaii, but in a fantastical universe. I have fond memories of that, and I did costumes and set for that. It was a Hawaiian landscape, but not literally. And I remember going through a lot of research from the culture. And I remember talking to Jorge about our visual concept, and we landed on these Hawaiian rafts with these black artwork, like wooden rafts. So we set, the stage was symbolic of a raft, a Hawaiian raft, and that's where it happened. And I remember we painted the whole floor blue and the whole expanse blue so
I love working, in Esteban only because Alban and we get to work together in a different type of relationship. And I think it was really, again, wonderful to be able to tell a different story with a different aesthetic perspective. There's a very long history, very, very long history of conversations, all type of conversations that had nothing to do with the play itself, but sort of ideas that, that I understood that were very important for Alban, that was directing it and was writing it. So I sort of managed to connect in his writing about not only the idea of where the play was happening, but the emotional background that the play carried. So I think that was really great because I had a lot of conversations with Alban about so many different things. And I think it was very important for me to sort of put it on stage, sort of recreate so much of that emotional content that the play had. Yes, it was a show about people in space. It was a musical experience too, a poetic moment. But at the end, it was an idea of a man being trapped in an unjust situation. We managed with a lot of lighting, with little lighting, but and we worked, sort of discovering, talking, working with the actors in sort of how to take care, use the space in the best possible way. And we had also great collaborators too that, sort of managed to do the projections and, collaborate with the costumes, and the actors were like really, they jumped in and they just did it.
I loved, which was very exciting, Neon Baby, which was in the House of Extravaganza in the 1980s in New York. And I did sets and costumes for that too. I remember having Ref Star, the graffiti artist, graffitiing the whole set and having fun creating the drag looks for the show. That was a very exciting show for me to tackle. Because light was such an important element to make it even more exciting and tangible. I had those clear solar panels that we use as backdrop so they could be lit in many ways. And that turned out to be a home run, I think, for the final. And it was very urban, too.
I love working with my friend Jorge. because I get to light him doing fantastic things, looking fabulous and great. And also, using music. He's very musical. So we get to be, we sort of got really into that. And he's demanding, as a good director is. So we had a lot of fun. Challenges could come in so many different ways. Sometimes you work in a difficult space. The grid is too high, the grid is too low. We don't have enough money to get all the fixtures that we want. Sometimes there's new rewrites on the show. I think the biggest theatrical challenge that lighting designers that we encounter is that our process to work in the theater is rather short. Tech is a few hours a day or long hours during the day, but we don't really spend time as actors in rehearsal or set designers looking at their work with the idea of contemplating the product or the ideas. We lighting designers, we work sort of reacting to the moment, and we have to make decisions really quickly.
Theater is about collaboration. And I think really Lucrecia looks good and I look good because we have each other. I think it's very important to have your fellow designers be on the same page with you and speak the same language and have a similar vision. So good collaborations, when they happen, they're very special. And that's what I have with Lucrecia, that every project with her, we have a visual language. And we know what we're talking about. We're looking at the same, and sometimes we're not, but then we can communicate that and get to an idea. I think it's crucial that we all work together. Yeah.
Que no es lo mismo llamar la guaracha que verla venir. La vida es una cosa fenomenal.
Lo mismo para adelante que para atrás. La vida es una cosa fenomenal. Lo mismo para adelante que para atrás.
Pero la vida también es...
Guaracha was ambitious. It took place. We did it at the stage of the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater, which is a very challenging space because it doesn't have any wings. And I did the sets and the costumes. It was set in the 70s, based on Guaracha del Macho Camacho. And my visual solution to Rosalba Rolón, who directed, was like, well, what if we take good use of the vertical line and use it to its max? And then if the eye travels up and down the vertical line, then it makes the world not as entrapped. So I used the highway, which was a reference also to those 70s, that trend in the 70s that people painted lines. We used primal colors. I used the symbol, if you want to call it that, of the highway going all the way up down to the floor, and then tall project screens to project images. So we worked up and down, and I think that's how I solved it. And I think it worked in terms of solving the space. I document my work, well, in my portfolio. Before technology, I used to have files, like paper files and the old-fashioned way. But now I have it all. I update my website regularly. So most of it's there. And in my computer, I have folders with years, theater companies, production names. So it's all there for me to reference. I do the same thing with research. Like, for example, if I start a show here today, I'll open a folder. And that's a good thing about technology, that now we can click that. With a click, we can do it. And then I organize all the research, like color, textures, shapes, pictures, paintings. I just finished designing the costumes for an opera in Chicago earlier this year, Freedom Ride, about the whole civil rights movement. And that was it was what they call a world premiere. It's a new piece. So that happened earlier in 2020 before the pandemic, and my work was featured in Opera News magazine, which I was not expecting. So that was very significant. And earlier I had done a Raisin in the Sun at Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. at the beginning of the previous administration. So all of a sudden, that was a great venue and a great play that all of a sudden became very relevant to 2017. I produced a few shows in Puerto Rico that I'm proud of too.
I love that my work lives in the imagination of people. That's the real place that my work lives. But in order to show my work and sort of people know what the product of my work has been, you have to get a good photographer to have a keen eye and sort of capture those moments in a particular way. And then I do put it in a portfolio. I have an online portfolio. I extensively work with the Civilians. I have done many shows with them, and they are an amazing theater company. My work with them has always been challenging and exciting. My work with La Micro, that is a Latin American theater company, I'm very fond of, because the work is in Spanish, and they are very young grassroots, a company. Through my work, I have been able to gotten amazing friendships and relationships that have really make my life richer. And I think that is one of the things that I love about this profession, that our lives gets enriched because of our collaborators, the stories we tell, and the people we meet.
Hone your craft, keep educating yourself, form yourself as an artist, persevere, and make sure you really like it. But perseverance and informing yourself will really help you further along the line.
Find people that you like working with, and then knock at their doors, and if they take your call or they open the door, it's because it was meant to be, and they are going to be great mentors for you. Don't feel embarrassed, worried that they are not going to open the door for you. They will. We are looking. We want to cater and sort of train the new generations of collaborators.